featuring Chief Evangelist Mike May. Good Maps was born out of the American Printing House for the Blind, APH, created with a simple mission to further the cause of accessible navigation and to improve the accessibility, safety, and productivity of indoor spaces. Good Maps accomplishes their mission by creating and maintaining accurate and secure 2D and 3D digital maps, providing accurate positioning and delighting their users with a trusted wayfinding experience. Mike has a master's from the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters from Coker College. Mike May's career experiences include Executive Director of the Workforce Innovation Center at Envision in Wichita, Kansas, CEO of the Lighthouse for the Blind in Seattle, and CEO, founder, Dara Group, makers of accessible navigation products. Mike has been inducted into the Hall of Fame with the U.S. Association of the Blind, setting the record, the world record, for downhill speed skiing for a totally blind person at 65 miles per hour. That is incredible. Mike has met 5 presidents, including President Obama and several of his cabinet members, to discuss national initiatives on adaptive technology. He is also the subject of the best-selling book, Crashing Through, by Robert Kurson, with a movie in the works. To learn more about Mike May, if you go to the VLANJ Facebook page, there's a beautiful video talking about all exciting things that Mike has accomplished. So before we begin our presentation, let's review the Tech Talk format. As Mike presents, he will let you know when he is ready to take your questions. We do ask that you use the raise your hand feature. For those of you who dial in, the raise your hand feature is *9. *6 will mute and unmute you, giving you the opportunity to ask your questions. If you're on a computer, Alt-Y to raise your hand, Alt-A is the mute and unmute command. Using the Zoom app on the iPad, top right, select the More option on the top of the screen and flick down to raise hand. On the iPhone, this feature is located at the bottom of the screen on the right side. Now, I'm very proud and honored to have with us tonight from Good Maps, Mr. Mike May, and I believe Evelyn is going to join as well. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Nice to be here, and thanks for a great turnout. Yes, Evelyn Titchener is here. She's a Chief of Staff at Good Maps, and I'll just let her say hi to make sure I can hear her.
Hey, everybody. I'm here, and yeah, what a great turnout today.
Hello, welcome.
There she's in from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm in Reno, Nevada. But I also feel like an honorary resident of New Jersey, having 7 dogs from the CNI and going there almost every quarter for the 12 years I was on the board. I still hope my bedroom at Jim and Ginger's house has my name on it, because I'm due to come back. So it's a real pleasure to talk to folks in New Jersey and tell you a little bit about my favorite subject and to hear your questions about accessible navigation. You heard the Good Maps mission is to enhance accessible navigation outdoors and indoors. And we're going to play a video. It's got good audio, so you won't need much visual description, but Evelyn's going to play those. And I want to share with you some of my other key phrases that are associated with my navigation experience. One I really like, it's probably my favorite moniker, which is the power of getting unlost. So you want to be thinking about that and think about how do you feel about getting unlost? Usually people think about getting lost or not, and they try to avoid it. But there's actually some real benefit to getting lost. And because that means then you can get unlost. And typically your mechanism has been your memory, your experience, sighted passersby, which are not all that accurate. My rule of thumb has always been to ask 5 people 4 directions and then to average the answers. Because we all know how sighted people are well-meaning, and sometimes they give you directions, wrong directions, just because they're trying to be helpful. And when in fact, it would be better if they didn't say anything at all, or they just said, sorry, I don't know. Another one of my pet phrases is, there's always a way. And that refers to navigation. It refers to life. The way to get to something or to accomplish something isn't always right in front of you. A lot of times it involves going around a corner, going over a barrier. But if you believe there's always a way, you will find one. If you kind of give up early on in the quest, you probably aren't going to find the way. But if you believe there always is one, you'll get there. And how do you get there? With workarounds. That's what accessible navigation is all about. That's what life is about, workarounds. And that's particularly relevant for blind people because things are a little more complicated for us than for a sighted person because we're crossing a street with workarounds. We have a dog or a cane or a sighted guide. Sometimes it's a prayer. And, if the jackhammer is going or something and you got to cross, you just go for it. Those are all workarounds for things that a lot of sighted people take for granted. And I think it's pretty fun that something that would otherwise be boring in a sighted person's life, like they don't even think twice about crossing a street, for us can be real rewarding. You get to the other side and you say, hey, I'm still alive. This is exciting. This is good stuff. Sighted people don't have that same sense of thrill and excitement. So as you could tell with things like workarounds and crossing the street safely and getting unlost, that this is a big part of my perspective and how I use tools. When we talk about the toolbox, you really have to have a pretty full toolbox because there's not one tool that does everything. You need a combination of things, as we all know. The accessible toolbox may have Victor Reader Stream. It may have an iPhone, iPad, memo recorder, of course, our phone with apps. In my case, Braille Note PK. At least 10 years since that has been discontinued, and it is one of my favorite tools. So we have to look at the pros and cons of each one of these things and then have a combination of devices that accomplish whatever we need in terms of reading, writing, and getting around. So I'm going to talk to you a lot about Good Maps because that's one of the several apps that are available to help a blind person get around. As we all know, navigation apps are very much a part of everybody's way of life these days and take them for granted. But maps are pictures, they're visual. And so how do we deal with those as a blind person with speech output or Braille output? And so that's been the focus of the Good Maps Explore app, which is a free app. Good Maps is one word, by the way. And it was really designed to cover the basic features of outdoor navigation. So there's other apps like the one that I created and carries the name of the CNI GPS in the US. It's called RNIB Navigator in the UK and Europe, and Guide Dogs NSW in Australia and New Zealand. And those apps all have several years under their belt. I think we probably released CNI GPS in 2012, 13. And so you develop a lot of features. They're very comprehensive. They have breadcrumb mode. They have very good complex intersection information. So it doesn't hurt these days to have multiple apps because they all have their strengths and weaknesses. The real strength of the Good Maps Explorer app is that it's simple. And that, some people want the comprehensive features of Nearby Explorer, which was the predecessor to Good Maps Explorer. Nearby from APH has a lot of features, and people who are familiar with that app love it. And they probably miss some of those features when they use Good Maps Explorer. But free and simple are two of the things that we hang our hats on at Good Maps. And then indoor navigation is really one of the hallmarks of the Good Maps Explorer app. This is something that's the new frontier. People take outdoor for granted, but I want to talk a lot about indoor navigation, where it is and how it works. But first, I'm going to go over my 6 principles of independent travel. And then Evelyn will put on the general Good Maps video. We'll look at that. And then maybe another one, since we can't demo in person, we want you to hear what it sounds like for users. I think we have a video of me navigating indoors and another one of a young lady navigating outdoors. Number 1 in my list is independence is not measured by acuity, visual acuity, but rather by one's ability to get around. I'm a firm believer in this. You could have 5 blind people sitting in the same room, and some would be afraid to leave the house and could have low vision. You could have a totally blind person who has had more experience, is less fearful about getting out and about, and so they're much more independent than the person with low vision. And the same thing goes with people with full vision. I've traveled a lot and I'm very experienced, and there's any number of times I've been on an airplane and had to help out a very frightened first-time sighted traveler. So that's why I say your ability to get around is your measure of what I would call life acuity. And number 2 is an important distinction. It seems everybody would know this, but navigation tools are not for mobility, they're for orientation. The cane and the dog and the sighted person, those are your mobility tools. And as you're learning these things, it's good to remember that distinction. Number 3, in order to have informed choice, a popular rehab term, one needs to know what businesses and streets are nearby. Otherwise, we get maybe 1% of location information from our friendly sighted family or friends, and that's not a lot. So if you have these tools, you can really hear a lot about your environment, and therefore you can make informed choice. Number 4, training and regular use are key to effective use. I think anybody who's come to this meeting, you're here because you're learning. And a lot of people don't take advantage of that, but you really have to learn and inquire, be inquisitive to learn about these things. And if you happen to be a teacher of these things, it's important, even if you don't learn them. Like a sighted person isn't necessarily going to learn all the nuances of voiceover and accessible apps, but an O&M instructor can serve a role as a cheerleader to encourage their clients to use these things. Number 5, making the most of a tool means understanding its strengths and its weaknesses. That's ever so true. Every one of these devices has something that it's not good at. And if you're going to take advantage of its strengths, you need to know the weaknesses as well. And then finally, when we're developing these things, and as we're looking at the solutions and the workarounds, there's a concept that piggybacking mainstream technology reduces the cost and increases the utility of an accessibility tool. So those are 6 principles that I think about when I'm designing and developing products, and as I'm teaching, there are things that I think it's important for people to know about. And of course, it's best to use multiple navigation tools in conjunction with each other. Tactile devices are good, things like touch graphics, tactile maps from the San Francisco Lighthouse. You can order from them, send them your address, and they'll send you a tactile map of your neighborhood or whatever you specify. When I move somewhere, that's the first thing I do is I get those tactile maps. There's the PC Maps product, or called Sendero Maps, which is virtual exploration on your computer. It's a really good way, again, to explore an area before you get there. So look at, and even using apps in combination, like having Apple Maps or Google Maps running, having Explorer running together. It takes a little getting used to have two voices blurting at you, but this is part of what's important if you really want to take advantage of the strengths of each. Apple is not very good at detail and prompting around turns, and the accessibility apps are. So I have more to say about that, but I know Evelyn has to pop out shortly. So let me go ahead and run the Good Maps General video and then see how our timing is after that.
All right, let me pull that up 1 second.
Good Maps.
Maps with a mission.
My name is Jose Gastambide, founder and CEO of Good Maps. At Good Maps, we believe that indoor digital maps play a fundamental role in making spaces more accessible, welcoming, and safe. Our journey began at the American Printing House for the Blind, where we were tasked with creating technology that would allow people who are blind and visually impaired to independently navigate the spaces around them. We quickly realized that this mission would be impossible to achieve without drastically increasing the number of buildings in the world that had digital maps associated with them. It was this necessity that created Good Maps as a company, and Good Maps is a brand new, innovative, LiDAR-based digital mapping platform.
Our mapping process starts by using a mobile LiDAR scanner that uses pulses of light to determine the distance to objects that are in their surrounding space. This allows a 3D point cloud to be generated that represents the building. We render the point cloud data so that you can visualize the indoor space in 3 dimensions. You can actually immerse yourself in that space and get the experience of being in the building. You can see the walls, floors, and ceilings and any other objects that were present during the scan. Next, we take cross sections of the point cloud, one for each floor, and produce an overhead view of each section. From there, we can generate a very accurate and to scale 2D floor plan. We label all of the rooms and spaces and then identify what we call points of interest, key things you want to know about or be able to find inside the building. These include items such as water fountains, restrooms, stairs, and elevators, basically anything that would be of interest to people in the building. The final step is to take all of that information, the 3D point cloud, the 2D floor plans, along with the labels and points of interest. All that data goes into our Good Maps platform so that it can be shared with applications that need access to that data.
An example of one of those apps is Good Maps Explorer. Point your phone to hear what's in a direction.
Book and Bourbon entrance, 43 feet. Comfy Cow counter, 28 feet. Starbucks entrance, 61 feet. Louisville Slugger entrance, 54 feet. Church Today entrance, 52 feet. Top of main upward escalator, 14 feet.
Valuable directions for both blind and sighted users.
Continue straight. Go left. Continue 16 feet.
Fast forwarding.
Go straight through bottom of main downward escalator. Continue 53 feet. Go straight through top of main downward escalator. Continue 20 feet. Go right. Continue 13 feet. Go left. Continue 97 feet. Go 10 o'clock. Continue 24 feet. Go right. Continue 60 feet. Arrived at destination.
Good Maps Explorer utilizes camera-based positioning, a revolutionary technique that relies on geo-referenced images and AI to provide easy installation and precise positioning. This provides a vast improvement in accuracy and eliminates the need for beacons and other infrastructure.
The power of getting unlost depends on accessible navigation. I need to hear what is around me in order to know my options. Navigating routes independently is liberating, as it can be frustrating to find or wait for sighted assistance.
In addition to making spaces more accessible for people who are blind, we're also focused on improving safety and operational efficiency. We're hard at work on solutions that provide spatial information for first responders, a range of facility management tools, mobile asset tracking, and virtual tours.
Learn more about Good Maps at www.goodmaps.com.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Evelyn. And why don't we queue up because your half hour is about running short for you. Let's queue up either the indoor navigation with me or the outside one with Taylor. Whatever you
Okay.
have there.
Yeah, let me pull up the one with you here.
And I'll mention while she's pulling that up, one thing that came to mind about teaching techniques, or when you're learning these things, always learn one at a time. You want to get good at the dog or the cane before you start incorporating the navigation devices. This is ever so true when you're at the CNI, for example. You're getting a new dog. You could certainly use the dog with the device as long as you're experienced and in both things. You don't want to be learning two things at the same time. Go ahead, Evelyn.
All right.
Maps with a mission. At the American Printing House for the Blind, Mike will create a route from the offices to the museum conference room.
Are you inside American Printing House for the Blind? Dismiss button. Yes button.
Calibrating position. Hold phone in photo position. Position established.
In office. Search for POIs at American Printing House, Miguel Library 50, Museum Conference Room 253 feet south, button, Museum Conference Room 200, search options, directions. Loading directions.
Calibrating position. Hold phone in photo position. Position established. Continue 37 feet. Turn right ahead.
Turn right ahead.
And I'm walking along with my
Right
dog,
and continue
Donnie.
27 feet. Continue 23 feet.
Continue 23 feet.
Turn left ahead. Enter stairwell and go down one floor.
Mike has entered the stairwell and will descend a two-part staircase to the floor below.
Enter stairwell and go down one floor.
Mike exits the stairwell and enters a hallway.
Continue 72 feet. Continue 27 feet.
Continue 20 feet.
Turn right and continue 185 feet. Continue 176 feet. Slight left and continue 159 feet. Continue 145 feet.
Mike is walking down a long, straight hallway.
Continue 109 feet.
Continue 100 feet. Continue 36 feet. Turn right ahead. Turn right and continue 12 feet.
Turn right and continue 9 feet.
Enter elevator and go up 1.5 floors. Enter elevator and go up 1.5 floors. Please make sure you are holding your phone in photo position.
We're now in the APH Museum.
Mike exits the elevator into the museum.
Turn right and continue 19 feet. Arrived at destination. Museum conference room entrance, right.
All right, so the entrance was over here.
Learn more about Good Maps at www.goodmaps.com.
Let me explain a couple things about that video. And Evelyn, I think that's good. We don't need to show the the outdoor one if you need to get going.
Okay, I'm going to hop off and thank you guys so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. You all have a good night.
Couple
Thank-
things about the video. One is when you hear this squealing sound going forward that was in the general video, that's the equivalent. That's just an audio cue to indicate fast forwarding or moving quickly, sort of speed mode. When you hear about 1.5 floors, in fact, that's one of those weird things at APH when you have a 160-year-old building. There are half floors. So that wasn't a mistake. That's the way that it worked. Somebody else asked me once, why don't I hear you talking to your dog? And I was using hand motions for her because I didn't want to step on any of the voiceover. You hear three voices. One is the video description, human voice from Kim. And then you hear the Australia voice, which is the background voice from the indoor navigation. And then the other voice, the male voice synthetic, was voiceover. So you have your choices of those two voices, and you can silence one or the other as you like, but you kind of get the full play-by-play when you hear all that activity. Let me mention a couple other things, and then let's take some questions. In terms of indoor navigation, you heard in the general video about our LiDAR and camera-based systems. People are going to be familiar with beacons, probably are more common. I mean, none of it's that common, but Bluetooth beacons are the most popular things being used by a number of the apps, Blind Square, Lazarillo, and some others. Wi-Fi fingerprinting is another technique that's been used. They all have their pros and cons. The biggest challenge with any indoor system is, well, number one, that they're not implemented in very many places. And when you do implement them, particularly with Bluetooth, it's on the flaky side. So you might have 5-foot accuracy, or you might have 30-foot accuracy. And you could stand in the same place and the accuracy would flip around. And that has to do with a number of factors with Bluetooth. On the phone, it's not a very consistent radio signal. If people walk in between the beacon and you, then it's going to block that Bluetooth signal. It gets absorbed by the person, so that's why the range is going to change. And with camera and LiDAR, you get more consistency. So that's a huge jump in the kind of technology being used indoors. There's also the equivalent of big barcodes that are being used by NaviLens in a couple of the transportation centers, and that's kind of interesting. The thing that's particularly unique to Explore and to Good Maps is turn-by-turn information. Most of the beacon systems, in fact, I think all of them, don't give you routes inside. So they tell you with what I call the getting warmer method, your next turn or your next waypoint is at 9 o'clock, 72 feet. And you have to turn right. And there may be a wall between you and that next waypoint. So you use a little bit of logic and you say, well, it's 9 o'clock, so I turn left, but there's a wall there. So I'm going to go down to the right and find a hallway that goes around that gets me to the vicinity. So it's useful, but it's not as easy as something that actually tells you where to go and where to turn into different hallways. And that's part of the algorithms. They're not always perfect. Sometimes the routes are a little bit off, but a lot of times it's pretty amazing to be told to turn and you're spot on that particular hallway. You can also, if you lose connectivity, that's something to think about with when you have a camera-based system. Also, you have to have the camera out. A lot of us have learned using Be My Eyes and Ira that having the camera out is just what you need to do if you have a camera tool. But currently, you can't have the Good Maps app running and the camera working unless you have it out. So I put it in a shirt pocket, on a lanyard, or on a backpack pouch. There's a pouch from a company called Timbuktu that's really good. I'm sure there's other ones, but it just lives on my backpack strap. And if I'm walking through an airport or I'm looking for navigation, I put the camera in there with the phone in there with the camera peeking out. So that's one of, when I talk about strengths and weaknesses, that's one of the weaknesses, if you will, or it's one of the attributes of having a camera-based system. But I think it's worth it when you trade that off for being able to have roots and have more reliability.
I'm listening to a Zoom call that I forgot I had today at 7. I'm glad we finished because I'm listening to it.
Somebody's on, you need to mute.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. We all have.
Yeah.
So with that, if you want to raise your hands, we'll call on you and see what your questions are.
I have 2 questions so far. Sure, we'll have more. The first question is from Sharon. Sharon, can you please?
Yes. My question is, I was playing with it, around with it today, but I could not figure out how to turn it off. How do you turn off?
How you turn off Explorer?
Yeah, how do you turn off Explorer? It was not clear. I mean, I'm low vision, so I can see, but I could not figure out how to turn off Explorer.
Well, it's the same as with any app. There's really no off button. You can silence speech with a double tap 3 fingers.
Okay.
For example, if I'm using VoiceOver and somebody comes up and starts talking to me, I've got to quickly shut it up. If you want to really end it, then you use the app closer feature to close it out altogether. And with any GPS app, Apple included, if you're not using them, you should close them out because the GPS radio takes a lot of battery.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Our next question is from Alan.
Hi, I have 2 questions. Okay. One is when I was listening to the video, it says go 72 feet. So you got to count 72 feet because it didn't say, oh, well, all it said was 72 feet. How do you know if you had 72 feet? So do you got to count them as you're walking?
It's counting down as you go. So you don't have to count. It doesn't count every foot. So about every 20 feet, it gives you an update. As you get closer, it gives you more. So you may recall that you heard 72 feet, 27 feet, 12 feet. It's giving you the countdown. So no, you don't have to count.
Okay. And the second question is when you go into the airport, you know, when you put the stuff in the basket and you got your camera strapped on your backpack, how do you know how do you know that you got to walk through that detector to see if there's any metal in your body without
Good question. Yeah, you got to take your phone off, and so you're on your own for that that small little walk through the scanner. The app isn't going to. It'll guide you to that particular location, but you're going to have to put it away for the time you go through the security scanner.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Matthew. Matthew.
Yes, I was going to say, I won your contest, and when I went to the APH hotel where we stayed, it was interesting. They had a little camera set up. So anytime when you got off the floor, it tells what floor, and you passed it tells what room you're in, like the auxiliary room, the dining room, and also said, that little convention room going on.
Yeah, there's a number of different tools that can be used for situational environments like that. For example, sometimes there's a staircase that's a little bit dangerous, or there's a drop off. So there'll be a motion detector that triggers an announcement that says, be careful, or stairs ahead.
Yeah, and my second, I don't have a question, but I know another Mike May whose older brother is a good friend of mine.
Is that right? Is he blind?
Yeah, no, he's not.
A small world.
Yeah, I think I heard in the participant list somebody with the last name of May, and I looked on my Braille display, and he made a mistake because he has an E after the Y.
But thank you so much, Mike.
You're welcome,
one more. Would that work in any building, or does that have to support like the app?
No, it'll only work in the buildings that have been mapped and scanned.
All right, thank you.
Now you can virtually explore. So if you go into the app, you go to the More tab, and then you pick venues. There'll be a list of venues, and you can pick those, and then you can virtually explore, just so you get a sense of it without actually having to fly there.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Uh-huh.
All right, next up we have Timothy. Timothy?
Hi, Timothy.
Timothy.
Alt A if you need to unmute.
Alt A or *6? Okay, we'll hold Timothy. We're going to go on to Debbie.
Hi. My question is kind of the same as Alan. He beat me to the punch, but I can add two questions or two related questions to that. I was curious, after using this app for a while, and they tell you, like, you know, go 175 feet. Do you get a feel for what that is with experience? Can you kind of judge?
You know, it's a good question, Debbie. The answer is yes, I think you do. It depends on the person. But I remember undergoing some tests at UC Santa Barbara, and they were evaluating this very point. And they said, if you tell people to go 47 feet, how will they be? Will they go 30 feet or will they go 80 feet? Do people really have a concept of what that means? And the answer is no, mostly they don't. People would overshoot. Most of the time they would undershoot, but they would rarely go 47 feet. So the real value of it is that it's relative. You know that if your thing is counting down and it says 170 feet, 150 feet, that's good. And you don't really need to sense, was that 20 feet or not, or was it accurate? But it's counting down, so that's good. If the number's going up, that's bad.
Yeah. So the last part of the question is, if you overshoot that distance, does the app tell you you've gone too far back up?
Yes, it does.
Or turn around?
Yeah, it says turn around. I guess you could back up.
Well, yeah.
My dog doesn't my dog doesn't do well with the backup command.
So it will let you know you've passed
It does,
your turn. Okay,
and
great.
sometimes, you know, outdoor navigation, sometimes that's a really valuable way. I know at Western Michigan University, Paul Ponchilla would teach his students they put a 25-foot circle in the middle of a field and they'd have people aim for it. And they found that it usually worked best, then they're using GPS to overshoot it and turn around and come back. And then they would be closer to the center of the circle.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we have quite a few more questions. So Christina, you are up next.
Mike answered my questions because the fact I was concerned about the feet, because I don't really have a sense on where, you know, like to count it down. So that's good and is there any places in New Jersey that we can use Good Maps Explorer, Mike?
Sadly, not yet. Maybe
Well,
the CNI will be
New
one.
Jersey and put one in.
Yeah.
Come on down.
No, we really need everybody to advocate for you know, if you know somebody that's a building owner or runs the library in your town or something, put us in touch. We can send them a quote. It's pretty straightforward and maybe get something going. And we have a number of buildings in process in New York. And a lot of transit centers are interested in indoor navigation, which, by the way, has a lot of value to everybody, not just blind people, which speaks to one of the points I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Even like a hospital would be good to have something like that in.
Yeah, oh yeah. Some are very complicated. Love to see it go into one of the VAs. Some of them are really big and very complex.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Christina. Next up, we have Aaron. Be patient, everybody. There's a lot of people with the hands raised, and I'm making notes, so I will.
Do you need LiDAR in order to use this?
No,
Good Maps? Can
you
it work?
do
Can it work
not.
without LiDAR?
The LiDAR is a commercial version that we use. They showed it in the video, and I'll describe it to you. It's a picture of a big backpack with a turret coming out of the top. Probably weighs 30 pounds. There is a LiDAR in the newer iPhones, but you don't need
Yeah,
to have that version of the iPhone. If you have an iPhone 7 or better, you'll be able to use the software.
that's good.
Thanks, Aaron.
No problem.
Thank you, Aaron. Moving on to Peggy.
I think Christine actually asked my question. I wanted to know if any of the malls in New Jersey were mapped yet.
Amen. Yeah, that would be one of my favorite things to get mapped. I
Me
think
too.
my aversion to malls is that they're not very much fun if you don't know what's around, and if you can't window shop as a blind person. I think it would be huge to have just know what's around as you pass things.
Yeah, even if you don't want to go in there, you at
Right.
least know what's there. And hospitals and, different places like that where it's huge.
Yep.
Thank you, Peggy. Okay,
Thanks.
next
Thank you.
up we have the last four digits of your phone number, 2612.
Hello.
262. Okay, we'll move on. I will go to next up. We have Hilton.
Hello. Hello.
Is that
All right.
2612?
We hear you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
2612. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I use Soundscape, and I use, if I really want good walking directions, I'll use Apple Maps, which pretty adequate for what I need. But yeah, I've never had an indoor app. But I guess my question is, like with Soundscape, you can set a beacon, or you can mark places. Is there a way with this that let's say you're at a convention and you want to mark your hotel room so you know where it is, something like that. Can you do that with this? And you did answer my other question. You do need a support system. I'm looking for an indoor app where you don't need a support system, where you can go anywhere, but it seems like you can't really get that. That's why you need either Ira or, Be My Eyes or something. But I was just curious about those two questions anyway.
Yeah, as far as a system, I think you mean a building needs to be mapped. And so the mapping is not, you don't have to install any hardware. So that's the good thing. But you do have to map the building with this LiDAR rig that I described. So you're right in that case. The building does need that indoors. In terms of Soundscape calls them beacons, and Soundscape is a wonderful app, and it's the only one that uses spatial 3D audio to help present information, which is really fantastic. I call them user points of interest. They call them beacons, and you can set those outside with Explore. We don't yet have the ability to set indoor points. So if you're in a building with no GPS, then you can't yet set points. But most airports, you still can get some, or a lot of other buildings, if they have enough windows, you can set the user points even inside.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try. I see Timothy. Timothy, are you ready to ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, great, Mike. Pleasure to meet you. You were talking about the Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco, a tactical map. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, they're T-maps, or what they call them, T-MAPS. And they have a database of the whole U.S. And so I think you can do this online. You plug in your address. If you're connected with an agency or something, I think you can get them for free. Otherwise, they cost $19.95 last time I ordered some. And they send you 3 copies, I think, of different scales of your location with a key and the Braille indicators of the streets around your house. So they're paper 3D maps.
Okay, interesting. And I have another question for you with your skiing. Where did you set that record?
Les Arcs, France.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So are you a member of the USABA?
Yeah, I was on the USABA board for a number of years. I'm in their Hall of Fame, and I was very involved with them. Yeah, it was that particular record I set in Europe because none of the U.S. Ski resorts would allow a blind person to compete in speed skiing. But in Europe, they didn't really care.
Okay. I'm a participant with Vermont Adaptive up in Killington and Pico, and I'm a member of the USABA.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I never skied in Killington, but wonderful place.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Next up would be patient, everybody. So next up we have Hilton.
Hello, thank you. My question for you is, well, I tuned in about 10 to 15 minutes late because I was on another previous call, so I don't understand the part about the mapping yet and the scanning that you mentioned. And I'm wondering if you guys have thought about giving us the ability to be able to map or scan a building ourselves, for example, our place of work, where it would, I don't know how exactly that would work, what the building would need access to, or how we would be able to do that.
Right. So the way the mapping currently works is with a big commercial scanner. We walk through it, it scans the building. We have to do that using LiDAR. Some of the newer phones have LiDAR. They don't have the resolution yet to do that kind of level of mapping. However, it's likely that you'll soon be able to label user points of interest. They can do door recognition and things like that. So I'd say stay tuned, and you're going to see a lot more out of the built-in LiDAR systems.
Very great. Great. One more question. I'm going to go to your website, by the way, because I really want to read up on this. Would there, as I'm walking, because I noticed you mentioned the squeaky, the sound. What if I'm walking into a quiet building where people are in their offices, they don't want to hear noise? Would you have an option for haptic feedback?
Yeah, the squeak was on the video. It had nothing to do with what you'd hear walking around.
Okay.
So the best thing to do is to have some aftershocks headphones, which don't cover your ears.
I have those.
And the latest model is called OpenCom, and it actually has a little boom mic, which is great for Zoom.
Cool.
So the aftershocks or the Bose frames also don't cover your ears. That's the best way to deal with audio. Haptic is great because it just doesn't tax you as much when you can get two vibrations for right, one for left, that kind of thing.
Or when you get 27 feet and it maybe gives you a little more feedback as you're getting closer, like pulse a little harder or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Or even incorporate that in the Apple Watch would be awesome. One more question real quick. You mentioned that the Timbuktu thing that you put on your shoulder, on your backpack, that would work perfect for me at work because I've been looking for something that would clip onto my backpack. Do you have like a name of the model or whatever it is?
That is it, Timbuktu, like the city. And
okay,
there's two sizes, at least I think they call maybe medium and large or something like that. So just make sure you read the details to see that it fits your size phone.
It clips securely, it holds the phone securely.
It's got a lot of Velcro involved. I took scissors and cut off some of the flaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, some of those can get in the way. Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hilton. We're going to move on to the next question with Ashley. Ashley's been very patient. Ashley, now she's muted. Ashley, can you unmute yourself? Okay, we'll come back to Ashley. The next up, we have Alan again. Alan? Okay, we're going to move on to Sharon. Sharon has another question. Where'd everybody go?
I put him to sleep.
No, no way. This is too interesting.
Linda, I don't know how to drop my hand once it's raised, so that's why
I do that, Alan. Don't worry about it. Go
Okay.
ahead, Alan.
okay. You mean me?
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay. Now, when you're outside with that there, and you have you said you have earbuds in your ears to listen to.
No, you have earphones over your ears, not in them.
Okay, over your ear. So, but how do you, if you're crossing the street, how do you hear if the cars are coming or not?
That's why you have it over your ears and not in your ears.
Okay.
So
But
they
if
don't.
you-
Yeah, the aftershocks don't block your ears. The transducer goes right in front of your ears against your cheekbones.
Are they expensive, these aftershock headphones?
They're not cheap. They're, I think the newer models are 149. I found that if you go into, I don't know if you guys have REI, but it's a sporting goods store, and I went into one and they had them in their special deals thing for like $50.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have Sharon is up for another question. Sharon? Okay, we'll come back to Sharon. Matthew?
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing I learned. Here's a mobility trick. My town is very narrow. If you have to go 100 feet, every telephone pole is 100 feet apart.
That's
So if
handy.
you miss, that's handy. And second thing, I've been skiing. My mobility instructor, the teacher's taking me skiing. I've been like about 4 times. I come out of the bathroom. I wore the blind skier vest. The kid comes up to me. Ice, no blind, now regular. But I loved it. But like I said, that's a mobility and trick I learned with for Boy Scouts. Every telephone pole is 100 feet apart.
I'm going to check that out. That's great information. I never heard that.
That's cool.
Because I count about 50 paces, so I think on my pace was about 24 feet, about 24 inches apart.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I have another meeting to go to. Have a good day, everyone.
You too, Matthew.
Okay, we do have another question from Martha.
Yes, thank you. I'm here. Thanks for the presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Because I couldn't. Yeah. You were talking about aftershock phones, headphones, or phones that don't cover your ears. Can you tell me that again? What is the brand? And
Yeah, it's aftershocks is spelled AFTER and then SHOKZ.
Mhm. And how
That's
do you
the
wear
trick.
these? So you don't wear them on your ears. You wear them. It's like a bone induction kind of a thing, or?
Yeah. So I'm just putting mine on here. So they loop. There's a band that goes around the back of your head, and then around the front, there's loops that go over your ears, and then the transducers where you hear the stuff sits right in front of your earlobe on your cheeks.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's good. I didn't know about these headphones before. I mean, these phones before.
Yeah.
They will be very helpful because you're near your ear.
Oh, yeah.
I usually navigate, use my perception. So, all right. Thank you very much. And,
Yeah,
and
thank you,
actually, where
Martha.
can I get those? Online or I could?
Yeah, there's an aftershocks.com.
All right. Thank you.
That's SHOKZ, correct? Mike?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the next step we have Patricia.
Yes. So it sounds like because buildings have to be mapped, that a lot of this is kind of a thing of the future for those of us that don't maybe live in really big cities. But what about the outdoor navigation? Is that pretty much up and running everywhere? I mean, okay.
It's in US, Canada, and UK.
Okay. So that just draws on all the mapping that's already been done,
Yeah.
of course, for other GPS types of apps.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, great.
Okay, we do have another question from, we didn't get your name, the last 4 digits, 2612.
Yeah, this is Ward. Just one question about the aftershocks headphones. Would they work with hearing if you wear hearing aids? Because that's part of the problem. I can't wear earphones, and I don't have the kind of hearing aids that have Bluetooth because the insurance wouldn't pay for it. So, would they be okay to wear with your hearing aids?
Yeah, I don't know that. I suppose it's a matter of, physically, do they bump into your hearing aids depending on where they are? I would check the return policy. So if you order them, you can return them if they don't work, because you'll probably just have to try them.
If I go to Best Buys and try them there, I could try them and see whether they would work or not, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions for Mike?
I can tell we're coming up on the hour because at 5 o'clock my dog wants to eat and she's starting to nudge me.
Uh-oh, we have one more question before you go feed your dog.
Sure.
Misty.
Some of my questions was already asked, but I was wanting to know for the outdoors area, let's say basically where something is, but you're not sure of the address itself. It's on, let's say, Main Street, but you're not sure exactly where the address is. Would that take you to it, or you still have to do the navigation as you were saying?
Yeah, if you know Misty, if you know the name, then you go to the point of interest tab. You type in the name, and it'll come up in a list, and then you select it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
We do have another question. Debbie, please.
I'll make this quick because it's going to be a really stupid question. We have a mall near my house in Paramus, and the roof of the mall is entirely glass. It's like an atrium kind of a mall.
Oh, nice.
It's enclosed, but it's all, the sky is all open. Would the outdoor, Paramus Park, right? Would the outdoor
It should.
feature work in that mall, you think?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't give me names of stores. It would just give me
No,
addresses.
it wouldn't. But you could use the user point of interest labeling and go mark them yourself.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, because the whole ceiling is glass. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just keep in mind that GPS accuracy is roughly 30 feet. So you may mark it one time and then you come back and you're 20 feet off.
Right. Okay, I got you.
But
it'll get me in the
close.
ballpark. Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mike? Oh, we do.
Yes, one quick one.
Chris.
Yeah.
Christina.
Mike, can you hear me? What about with the marking? What would you be using? Soundscape or?
No, you can use it in Explore. You can use CNI GPS, Soundscape, Explore. Any of them have user point of interest recording.
Do you have it in Good Maps Explorer?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It's under favorites.
Favorites? Okay.
Do we have any other questions before we close?
I have one quick question.
Oh, Timothy, go ahead.
The outdoor navigation that people are talking about, is this a part of the actual Good Maps
Yes.
GPS system, or can you get that outdoor navigation system through your phone itself?
It's an app. The Good Maps Explorer app works both indoors and outdoors. So yeah, if you go to Good Maps, one word, space Explore, you can download the app and try it.
And is there a cost for the app?
No, it's free.
Okay, cool.
Martha, you have another question. Go ahead, Martha.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm very sorry. I know you had to do your job, but for the trails and in the parks, does this work well for the Good Maps application, like Yosemite, whichever nature trails? If we want to go, tracking or hiking, is this application good for that?
You could mark user points of interest. It really depends if those trails are in the map database for outdoors or not. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. You can use apps. There's an app called All Trails that, a lot of these are quite visual. They're not meant to be accessible, but I've used them, All Trails. And then you get to a favorite point or maybe the beginning of the trail and you mark it in your app so you can find it on your own.
With the Good Maps, right? You're talking about with your app?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Thank you. Great presentation. Have a good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions before we close? Mike, I would really like to take the time to thank you so much for your presentation, filled with great information. And I love some of your statements, like power of getting unlost, and believe there's always a way. And the one that I really liked that I read in your website was a wayfinding experience. And I think that's awesome. Great presentation. We really appreciate your time and your being with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Another one to close with is, it's better to travel hopefully than to arrive.
I love it.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you
Mike.
all.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
So before all of you leave, I want to just let you know, Vision Loss, we thank all of you for joining us for Tech Talks. And please remember to join the VLANJ Tech Facebook page, where there will be a recording tomorrow on the presentation tonight. I want to let you know there will be no presentations for Tech during the month of July and August. We're going to take those months off for everybody to enjoy their summer months. And please be sure to stay tuned for many more special guests and topics coming your way. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.